as well as refusing inspection by the IAEA, must be immediately addressed by Iran in order to restore confidence. In this context, Greece yet again reiterates its unwavering commitment to the nuclear non-proliferation regime, with the IAEA and the NPT as its essential institutional pillars. Safeguarding it and reinforcing it remains vital for regional and global stability and for the maintenance of international peace and security. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Greece for the statement. I give the floor to the representative of Bahrain.
شكرا سيد.
Thank you, Mr. President. Allow me to thank the U.S. delegation for presiding over the Security Council this month, and we thank you for holding this meeting on the briefing of the 1737 Committee and the snapback mechanism. Mr. President, discussing this report today comes at a very critical point following a series of missile attacks and ballistic missiles launched by the Islamic Republic of Iran against my country and other GCC countries, as well as Jordan. These dangerous developments represent an unprecedented escalation that threatens regional security and international stability. We would like to note to recall Resolution 2817, which was adopted by the Security Council yesterday based on a draft resolution tabled by Bahrain on behalf of the GCC countries and the Kingdom of Jordan. This resolution is based on developments and was negotiated in a transparent manner. It addressed the situation in a very, very transparent manner. In this resolution, the international community condemned the Iranian attacks by ballistic missiles and drones against GCC countries, and it called for halting them immediately and for respecting the sovereignty and territorial integrity of states. Targeting civilians and So targeting civilians is a blatant violation of international humanitarian law. It is a dangerous escalation that threatens civilian life, national economy, and the safety of communities. Whoever justifies the targeting of civilian infrastructure and the killing of civilians are not defending a cause. They are falsifying the truth. They are finding justifications for the aggression. This is a deep humanitarian and humanitarian flaw. The international community condemned these dangerous attacks. There were very clear positions from a number of states and international organizations condemning this aggressive behavior. This proves that the attacks by the missiles cannot lead to any legitimacy or friendship. Mr. President, the 1737 Committee was established by the Security Council to compel Iran to comply with its relevant international commitments. However, the situation on the ground shows that Iran continues with its aggressive behavior, and this directly threatens the security of the region and its stability as well as the safety of its people. We stress that the committee has to work. This is an essential mechanism to ensure that Iran abides by its international commitments to promote the effectiveness of the UN sanctions. This can help in curbing activities that threaten the safety and stability of the region. Mr. President, in conclusion, we call upon the Security Council to shoulder its responsibility in full in fighting these dangerous violations and taking a firm position against these hostilities to ensure regional and international security and stability. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of Bahrain for the statement. I give the floor to the representative of Latvia.
Thank you, Mr. President. As we're facing the ongoing hostilities in the wider Middle East, Iran's nuclear program and non-compliance with its international obligations are at the very center. And we express our regret that this is the first time we're discussing the 1737 committee since the imposition of Council sanctions on Iran in September of last year, despite the fact that we have been legally mandated to do so every 90 days. We also express our regret that an agreement was not reached on the 90-day report of the 1737 committee. The sanctions against Iran have been reimposed and remain in force. They reflect binding international law, and all UN member states, including the members of the Security Council, are obliged to respect and implement them. These sanctions were imposed due to continued and systematic failure of Iran to live up to its international obligations, most notably under the JCPOA and the NPT, including its non-negotiable legal obligations under the Comprehensive Safeguards Agreements. So let us be clear, the production of highly enriched uranium up to 60%, as previously reported by IAEA inspectors, cannot be reconciled with any peaceful purpose. As long as Iran chooses to pursue its destabilizing nuclear program, to refrain from granting unhindered access to IAEA inspectors to all relevant sites and not return to meaningful negotiations, the sanctions will remain in place. As we have seen, the 1737 committee has also been reestablished and is exercising its mandate, despite the continued delay in the appointment of chairs of the Security Council subsidiary bodies for 2026. This also is reflected in its continued work on the relevant exemption procedures. Mr. President, it is deeply regrettable that some Council members continue to dispute reality and legal facts. It is even more regrettable that in order to do so, the work of all Security Council subsidiary bodies is being paralyzed. This disruptive approach is the latest in a series of attempts to create a fictional parallel legal narrative aimed at challenging the authority of this body and its decisions. This is unacceptable, and it undermines not only this committee and the Council, but also international legal principles more broadly. Let me remind that Iran has supplied Russia with drones and missiles for Russia's aggression in Ukraine, used to attack civilian targets in violation of the Council Resolution 2231. And we also condemn Iran's provoked attacks with these same weapons against its neighbors and reiterate our solidarity with the states of the Gulf Cooperation Council, Jordan, and other affected countries. And we call for an immediate cessation of these attacks and urgent de-escalation. Mr. President, finally, allow me to reaffirm our readiness to engage constructively in further work of the 1737 Sanctions Committee and express our hope that the subsidiary bodies will resume their full operation as soon as possible, and that we will also support all efforts to ensure that Iran never acquires a nuclear weapon. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Latvia for the statement. I give the floor to the representative of Denmark.
Thank you, Mr. President, for convening this meeting. We regret that the 1737 committee was unable to agree on the 90-day report due to the unwillingness of some council members to recognize the decision that the council took in September last year on the snapback mechanism. Let me begin by expressing Denmark's deep concern with the continued escalation of the situation in the Middle East. We are witnessing a further destabilization of the already volatile and tense situation with grave consequences for the people across the region and for international peace and security. We're deeply concerned about reports of increasing civilian casualties and displacements. We call for maximum restraint and respect for international law, including international humanitarian law. We call for diplomatic efforts to reduce tensions and for negotiations to be resumed in good faith. Furthermore, Denmark strongly condemns Iran's continued attacks on countries in the region and beyond. These attacks must stop. We express our full solidarity with all the countries concerned. This is also why Denmark co-sponsored and voted in favor of the resolution presented by Bahrain on behalf of the GCC and Jordan yesterday. We were pleased that Resolution 2817 was adopted. Madam President, when it comes to Iran's nuclear aspirations, Denmark has always been clear. Iran must never be allowed to develop or acquire a nuclear weapon. As we watch the current escalations unfold, we're reminded why this is so important. We're deeply concerned by Iran curtailing cooperation with the IAEA, which has lost continuity of knowledge and for almost 9 months has been unable to provide information on the status or whereabouts of the enriched uranium stockpiles in Iran. As the IAEA has stated, this is a matter of proliferation concern and of compliance with Iran's NPT safeguards agreement. The IAEA's latest report, which predates the current escalation in the region, confirmed that Iran continued to deny the agency access to a number of nuclear facilities. This is not in line with Iran's NPT legally binding safeguard obligations and is deeply alarming. We see no credible civilian justification, neither for accumulating nor for hiding highly enriched uranium stockpiles. Last year, the E3 legitimately activated a snapback mechanism, and following the vote in the Security Council, all sanctions against Iran were reimposed. We call on Iran and all UN member states to fully comply with the 6 reinstated Security Council resolutions. Madam President, in closing, Denmark has and will continue to engage constructively in the work of the 1737 Committee. We regret that the Council has not yet agreed on a chair for the committee, which is holding hostage the full operation of all subsidiary organs. This significantly hampers the ability of this Council to execute its mandate. We stand ready to engage with all Council members to reach a solution as soon as possible. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Denmark. I now give the floor to the representative of Colombia.
Thank you, Madam President. Today, it is more important and necessary than ever before that this Council is able to meet in plenary and operate smoothly, guaranteeing the continuation of its specialized technical support. Concerns surrounding the lack of compliance and cooperation on the part of Iran with the IAEA come in addition to an environment of active conflict, which is spiking risks for global and regional security. And both these factors make it all the more necessary for the committee to fully perform its duties in their entirety. Having independent technical information and reliable monitoring mechanisms contributes to reducing risks of escalation and to avoiding erroneous interpretations regarding the situation on the ground, interpretations which could worsen the very same. Madam President, Colombia wishes to underscore the critical importance of the work of the IAEA and of its effective presence in these sites subject to its monitoring and verification. With this in mind, my country encourages Iran to guarantee the conditions necessary for the safe and timely access of the IAEA to facilities in order to resolve outstanding issues, safeguards issues, that is, pursuant to the NPT, and in order to restore full traceability and verification. For Colombia, it is also vital to ensure that without delay, we have a fully operational panel of experts. That will make it possible to rigorously document implementation, detect patterns of sanctions evasion, and issue evidence-based recommendations. we hope that the selection process currently underway will prompt progress towards the appointment of the panel in a timely fashion and to guarantee the technical support that this committee requires. Moreover, we wish to emphasize that Council sanctions are not an end in themselves, nor a punitive instrument. Rather, they are measures created to prevent, deter, and correct behavior which threaten peace. They are tools to support political solutions and to promote non-proliferation. Sanctions function best when they are part of a strategy which combines diplomacy and verification. Colombia will participate actively in the committee's deliberations with a constructive spirit and a results-oriented focus. We will continue to defend diplomatic channels, restraint, and the search for political solutions which make it possible to heed concerns around Iran's nuclear and ballistic program, as well as to mitigate tensions and open the way to the de-escalation of the conflict currently raging. In light of the above, my country appeals for restraint and de-escalation. We also appeal for a return to diplomacy as the only sustainable path towards avoiding greater tension and rebuilding trust. Madam President, we reaffirm our conviction that multilateralism, international cooperation, and objective technical verification remain the best chance we have of reducing risk, bolstering collective security, and contributing to stability, not only in Iran, but in the region as a whole. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Colombia. I now give the floor to the representative of France.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam President. I wish to thank the presidency for organizing this meeting on Committee 1737. The war into which the Middle East has been plunged must cease now. We stand in solidarity with the victims of these indiscriminate strikes, and we want a solution that respects international law and which guarantees lasting peace. Iran bears overwhelming responsibility for the catastrophic situation which is besetting both the region and the world. For years, Iran has played a destabilizing role for peace, international peace and security. Iran continues nuclear activities which violate its international obligations. For more than a year, the country has suspended almost all cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency. The agency is no longer in a position to guarantee the exclusively peaceful nature of the Iranian nuclear program. Secrecy cloaks the situation surrounding Iran's stockpiles of 450 kilos of highly enriched uranium. That is a quantity liable to allow the production of around 10 nuclear explosive devices. Moreover, Iran has developed a ballistic program which is of Herculean proportions. Thousands of ballistic missiles and tens of thousands of drones have been produced and continue to be produced, and they are widely used as we speak against countries in the region. Iran's strikes against its neighbors bear witness to a threat for the region and for the world. Iran has not seized the opportunities that it has received to achieve a diplomatic solution on this matter, in spite of efforts made by France and its E3 partners. Allow me in this connection to recall a number of facts and to look back at the past somewhat. In October 2023, the Ministers of Foreign Affairs from France, Germany, and the UK met in Tehran following the discovery of an Iranian nuclear program which was clandestine in nature. They met to find a solution, a peaceful and diplomatic solution indeed. That was in October 2003. It was largely thanks to the initiative of the E3, the US, China, and Russia, that the JCPOA was concluded in July 2015. And in 2019, the Iranian people were the ones who refused, and I insist on emphasizing that word, refused, rejected the mechanisms proposed by the Europeans. And then we saw the American withdrawal from the agreement. That was what came to pass. We never violated our obligations. Iran rejected the system that was offered to them by the Europeans to continue the implementation of that agreement. Since then, Iran has violated its obligations on a massive scale. These 450 kilos of uranium enriched to 60% bear witness to that fact. Iran says it doesn't want to develop a nuclear weapon. Okay, but when deeds contradict words, is it the words that count or the deeds? Today's strikes against neighbors in the region give us the answer we're looking for. Iran says, and said again yesterday, that it is not attacking its neighbors, but is only targeting military facilities. Facts on the ground prove the contrary. However, France remains convinced of the relevance of diplomacy, and we demonstrated that very fact during the sessions of talks in Geneva in 2024 and 2025 alongside its European partners. Against that backdrop, last year, France and its E3 partners had no other option but to activate the process to reinstate Security Council sanctions. The snapback resolutions on the Iranian nuclear and ballistic missiles were reimposed, and they stipulate in particular that Iran must halt its uranium enrichment activities, resume cooperation with the IAEA, and cease its ballistic programs. It is now incumbent upon member states to implement these resolutions in accordance with Article 25 of the Charter. We call upon member states to support the work of the 1737 committee, a committee that was reinstated to monitor the implementation of these resolutions. We note satisfaction that the committee has resumed the implementation of its exemption mechanisms. Mr. President, the reinstatement of sanctions is quite clearly not an end in itself. It is a peaceful tool aiming to ensure the cessation of Iran's destabilizing activities. The implementation of the reinstated resolutions must consequently act as a lever to encourage Iran to return to serious negotiations. France, alongside its partners, remains ready and willing to participate in efforts to find a robust, verifiable, and lasting agreement, one which will allow the resolution of issues regarding the Iranian nuclear and ballistic programs and its role at a regional level. Thank you.
I thank the representative of France and now give the floor to the representative of Pakistan.
Thank you, President. It is evident that the Council remains divided on the 1737 committee issue. Unfortunately, this split is also preventing agreement on the appointment of chairs of the subsidiary bodies, greatly impacting their work. We are of the view that matters related to 1737 committee must not be allowed to impede the routine work of the Council and its subsidiary bodies. We also note the lack of agreement on the report on this matter that should have formed the basis of today's meeting. President, the development since last June, as well as the ongoing situation that started with the unprovoked and unwarranted attacks on Iran, have deeply impacted the context of the Iranian nuclear file. Regrettably, the breakdown of diplomacy on the Iranian nuclear issue has further complicated an already complex matter that has been on a downward slide for the last few months. However, what has not changed is the continued validity of the fundamental principles and the multilateral spirit that led to the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action and the consensus adoption of Resolution 2231 in 2015. And more than ever, and even during the current conflict and heightened tensions, it is clear that an enduring solution lies in embracing those time-tested principles rather than abandoning them for short-sighted policies. The JCPOA was a unique instrument, manifestation of an approach based on dialogue, diplomacy, and pragmatism. It was the outcome of painstaking and arduous yet constructive negotiations. It charted a roadmap to comprehensively address the concerns of all parties based on reciprocal actions and thus embodying peaceful resolution of disputes that is at the heart of the UN Charter. Pakistan lent its support to the negotiated settlement of the issue, and it remains our core position till today. It was also in that vein that Pakistan supported the draft resolution that was presented last September to effect a 6-month technical extension of Resolution 2231 in order to provide time for diplomatic engagement. We also supported the presidential draft resolution that provided for the continuation of the termination of sanctions in accordance with the terms of Resolution 2231. President, it is clear that dialogue, diplomacy, and constructive engagement remain the only viable way forward. And yet, diplomacy has been forfeited in favor of military means. Pakistan has expressed its clear position on these developments in this chamber and elsewhere. We have condemned all use of force, targeting of civilian infrastructure, and strikes on nuclear sites under IAEA safeguards. Strikes against nuclear facilities carry huge environmental and safety risks for the population and people all around the region. IAEA's crucial verification mandate should not be disrupted. The IAEA is the institution responsible for verifying compliance with respective nuclear safeguards obligations of member states in an objective, impartial, and credible manner and on technical grounds. The IAEA should be enabled to fulfill this statutory function, and its verification activities in Iran should resume unimpeded. President, we reaffirm our support for the resolution of the Iran nuclear issue through peaceful means. Diplomacy and dialogue should be the guiding principles for achieving a negotiated settlement of all contentious issues in accordance with the rights, obligations, and responsibilities of the parties concerned. Only an objective, fair, and rules-based discussion can advance that objective. We call for an immediate cessation of hostilities in the Middle East and urge all parties to show a maximum restraint, avoid further escalation, and institute a permanent ceasefire and resume dialogue. All of Pakistan's efforts are aimed in that direction. In July last year, this council unanimously adopted Resolution 2788 that highlighted the primacy of resolving all disputes through peaceful means. We must urgently revive the spirit of the Charter and of that resolution to overcome the current spiral of escalation and stop this deadly cycle that has tragically visited the region so often in recent times. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Pakistan for the statement and now give the floor to the representative of the Democratic Republic of the Congo.
Madame la Présidente,
Madam President, the Democratic Republic of the Congo has been following very closely the situation surrounding the work of the 1737 Committee tasked with overseeing the sanctions linked to the Iranian nuclear program. Aside from all other considerations, we would like to insist on the following points. 1. The DRC reiterates its commitment to the fundamental principles of the United Nations, in particular the peaceful settlement of disputes, respect for international law, and the promotion of dialogue between states. On this note, my delegation underscores the importance of cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency, with a view to guaranteeing transparency and trust in the use of nuclear energy for peaceful purposes. 2. The DRC believes that nuclear non-proliferation is an essential pillar of our collective security. Nonetheless, we equally believe that any measure adopted by the Security Council must go hand in hand with sustained diplomatic efforts so as to promote a negotiated, lasting, and mutually acceptable solution. 3. In this spirit, the DRC encourages all of the parties involved to continue constructive dialogue as well as to fully uphold their international obligations. Diplomacy and international cooperation remains the most effective path for resolving tensions and preventing any escalation. By way of conclusion, my delegation would like to recall that the responsibility of the Council in pursuing the noble objectives of our organization, in particular the maintenance of international peace and security, compel us to overcome our differences so as to facilitate the Security Council's subsidiary bodies smoothly conducting Security Council activities. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the Democratic Republic of the Congo and now give the floor to the representative of Somalia.
Thank you, Madam President. Somalia reaffirms its commitment to the non-proliferation weapons of mass destruction. We take note of the divergent views among Council members regarding 1737. My delegation believes a balanced approach that addresses the concerns of all parties is essential in resolving current challenges. We underscore the primacy of the United Nations Charter and international law and encourage constructive, good faith engagement to preserve the Council's unity. Madam President, regarding Iran's nuclear issue, we urge a return to the negotiation table to resolve the non-proliferation issues. We believe the only viable path forward is a swift recommitment to the talks on non-proliferation in line with relevant international resolutions. Somalia recognizes the indispensable role that the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, verification and monitoring activities play in ensuring nuclear safety and global stability. We further acknowledge the critical role that the IAEA plays in safeguarding Iran's enriched uranium, including the clarification of information about nuclear materials at several locations. We reiterate our call for the establishment of a Middle East zone free of nuclear weapons and for all region states to join the Treaty on Non-Proliferation of Weapons without exception. Madam President, turning to the work of the subsidiary body organs, we express our deep concern regarding the Council's continued inability to reach a timely consensus on the appointment of chairs and vice chairs for the third consecutive month. The current deadlock follows the unprecedented delay in the appointment of chairs in 2025, the longest in the Council's history. We urge all delegations to show flexibility and a spirit of compromise so that the vital work of these subsidiary bodies can proceed without delay. To conclude, Madam President, the challenges before us demand a collective, measured response rooted in dialogue, mutual respect, and renewed commitment to multilateralism. Somalia stands ready to engage constructively with all Council members. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Somalia for the statement and now give the floor to the representative of Liberia.
President, today Liberia voted to adopt the agenda to discuss this issue because we believe the UN Charter and the binding language of Resolution 2231 require us to do so. Article 25 obligates all member states to implement Security Council decisions as written. In August 2025, a formal notification of significant non-performance under the JCPOA was submitted. The Council did not adopt a resolution within the 30-day period mandated by Resolution 2231 to continue sanctions relief. Under its explicit terms, the previous resolutions, including 1737, therefore resumed automatically. The IAEA report has documented significant levels of enrichment and stockpiles far beyond the JCPOA limits, providing credible, factual grounds for the notification that activated the snapback mechanism. Liberia's vote reflects no political alignment. It reflects fidelity to the Charter, the Council's own decisions, and the integrity of the non-proliferation regime. And I thank you.
I thank the representative of Liberia for the statement. And there are no more names inscribed on the list of speakers. The meeting is adjourned.